You're not free. That much is clear from the second you open your eyes. You wake up to darkness, not the kind of darkness that comes with night, but the kind that lives below decks, the kind that clings to your skin, presses into your lungs, makes every breath feel like it has weight. Wood creaks above and below, chains rattle beside you. Something warm and wet drips from the ceiling. It smells like rot and old blood. You're lying on your side, squeezed between bodies. Bare flesh touches yours, shoulders, arms, legs. Someone coughs near your head. Another person mumbles in a language you don't understand. You try to move, but you can't. Your wrists are shackled. Your ankles too. You've been like this for days? Weeks? Time doesn't work the same here. There's no sun, no moon. Just hunger, thirst, and the groaning of the ship as it slices through the Atlantic. You are 15 years old, and you're somewhere between the continent of your birth and the colonies that will now own your body. The memories come in flashes. You remember running through the bush with your older cousin. He could climb a tree faster than any other boy in the village. You remember the firelight dances, the taste of roasted plantains, the songs your mother sang while she braided your sister's hair. You remember the morning everything ended. It started with drums, not yours, not the ceremonial ones from your village. These were sharper, louder, foreign, then the shouting, the stampede of feet, the smoke. Your father pushed you toward the trees, told you to hide. You didn't make it. You were caught, beaten, thrown into a line of others. Some you recognized, some were strangers, all silent. You walked for days, bound together. When people collapsed, they were beaten. When they stopped breathing, they were left behind. Then came the coast, then the ship, then this dark, stinking box where you've been stripped of everything but your heartbeat. When the light finally comes, it's blinding. A hatch above creaks open, spilling sunlight down into the hole like it's being poured from heaven. A voice gruff, English shouts something. Then hands reach in and start dragging people out. You're yanked by your arm, hauled up a ladder, and dumped onto the deck like a sack of grain. The sun burns your eyes. Your skin cracks under its heat. You're not sure how long you've been on the ship, but your legs barely remember how to stand. You collapse more than once as they line you up. The ship's crew moves quickly, dousing you with water, forcing your mouth open, inspecting your teeth. You're not a person anymore. You're cargo being appraised. Charleston. You don't know the name yet, but this is where the ship docks. The harbour bustles with activity. White men bark orders. Carts roll past, stacked with barrels. Horses pull wagons heavy with tobacco and rice. You're marched from the ship, barefoot and still chained, to a market square that smells like sweat and sugar and gunpowder. Here's where you're sold. The slave market is open, loud and crowded. Dozens of black bodies stand on wooden platforms, waiting to be bought. You're forced up onto one. Men prod you with sticks. One lifts your arm and pinches your bicep. Another inspects your feet. They talk about you like you're a horse. Strong legs, good shoulders, might last 5 seasons if fed right. You're bought by a man named Elijah Dandridge. He doesn't look like the other she wears finer clothes, speaks more softly, but the way he looks at you is the same. You're an investment, a tool. Dandridge owns a plantation 3 hours outside of Charleston. It stretches for miles along the Ashley Riverich land for indigo, rice and cotton. He doesn't bring you there immediately. First, you're taken to a seasoning camp. This is where they break you. The seasoning camp is a stretch of isolated land surrounded by trees, hidden from the view of white townsfolk. It's where newly arrived Africans are taught how to behave, how to walk, how to speak, how to forget who they were. You're not allowed to speak your language. You're given a new name, Daniel. It's shouted at you until you respond to it. You don't know what Daniel means. It's not yours. But you say it anyway, because the first time you refuse, they whip you. The overseer is a man named Wallace. He carries a rawhide whip and a small Bible in his coat pocket. He preaches after every punishment. God disciplines those he loves, he says, while your back bleeds. You wonder what kind of God he worships, because it's not yours. At night, you sleep in a rough barracks with dozens of others. You whisper in your own tongue, only when you're sure Wallace is asleep. You learn who to trust, who speaks your dialect, who remembers your people. There's an old man named Kofi who was captured a year ago. He teaches you to sing again, quietly, songs not even the whip can erase. Your days are filled with drills, marching, carrying loads, digging ditches, being punished for mistakes you don't understand. You're told how to bow your head, how to say, "Yes, sir," how to lower your eyes. Every wrong move earns pain. Every correct one earns nothing. But you learn, because surviving means learning. After 6 weeks, you're taken to the plantation. The journey there is quiet. The land grows flatter, marshy, hot. Dandridge's estate is enormous, dozens of fields, rows of slave quarters, a massive white house on a hill that seems to watch everything below. You're taken past the big house and straight to the quarters. Your new home is a wooden cabin with 6 others. The floor is dirt. The walls leak when it rains. You're given a tattered blanket, a small tin bowl, and half a cornmeal cake. You're told to be up before the sun. That night, you don't sleep, not because you're afraid, though you are, but because of the silence. It's too loud. The world you knew is gone, and all that's left is this empty, foreign space where your name has been buried under someone else's. And in the silence, one thought grows louder. You are still alive, and tomorrow, that will have to be enough. Morning begins before the sun has the decency to rise. You wake not to the crow of a rooster or the rustling of leaves, but to the sharp crack of a whip slicing through the air outside your cabin. The sound is not meant to hurt you, yet but to announce the day's start. A warning, a reminder. There's no such thing as rest here. Sleep is not recovery. It's only the pause between orders. You scramble to your feet alongside the other men in your cabin. All of you move without speaking. There's no time. You grab your tunic stiff with sweat and dried muddened rush outside barefoot. The mud in the yard is cold against your skin. Some of the older men have sandals made from woven grass or scraps of leather, but not you, not yet. Shoes, you learn quickly, are earned here just like food, just like mercy. A man named Isaac moves beside you. He's maybe 23, but already his back is arched, his hands covered in thick calluses. You met him last night, and though he didn't say much, he offered you half of his sweet potato without being asked. That's rare. He nods to you this morning, quick, brief, then looks forward. The overseers walk the rows with long sticks and longer glares. They shout your names, your new name sand match you to a task. Daniel, one of them calls, jerking his thumb toward a cart piled high with bundles of tools. You're in the rice field today. You don't know what that means yet, but you will. The plantation has its own cruel rhythm, and today you're dropped straight into it. The rice fields are not fields the way you once knew them. There are no hills, no shade. Just low, flat wetlands, acres of knee-deep water and mud, hot even in the morning, breeding mosquitoes thick enough to blacken the air. The rice grows in long, delicate stalks, barely emerging above the waterline. and it is your job to make sure it survives. You're handed a hoe, the wooden handle warped and splintering. The head is rusted. Still, you're expected to use it for hour chopping weeds, dragging roots, smoothing soil with movements you're expected to learn instantly, with no instruction beyond "don't mess up." Mistakes here aren't corrected, they're punished. When your grip slips after an hour, the overseer doesn't even look before the whip lands across your back. It's fast, practiced. He doesn't shout, just flicks his wrist like he's dusting off his coat. The pain is sharp, but the shame is worse. You don't cry out, but Isaac hears your breath catch. He glances sideways, murmurs low enough not to be heard. "Keep your head down. Move your hands faster than your mouth." You nod. You do as you're told. The sun climbs. Your shoulders burn. Your feet blister. The water in the paddies becomes a warm, stinking soup. Bugs crawl up your legs and bite, and there's nothing you can do. Sweat pours into your eyes. Still, you work. There's no breakfast, no lunch, just a single jug of water passed between 10 men and the promise of something warmeth, barely ediblete, the end of the day. By mid-afternoon, a boy collapses nearby. He's no older than 10. He doesn't make a sound as he falls, just tips forward and disappears beneath the water. You all freeze. For a heartbeat, everything is still. Then the overseer curses, splashes forward, and yanks the boy out by his collar. The child is conscious, barely, but limp. His name is Samuel. His mother, Leah, is in the next row over. She cries out, running toward him, arms outstretched. She's stopped by 2 other workers before she can reach him. You see the heartbreak in her eyes, the terror of a mother who knows she can't protect her child here. The overseer drags Samuel to the edge of the field, tosses him onto dry ground, and returns to pacing. There's no doctor, no rest. The boy lies in the grass, unmoving, as the work resumes. This is how it goes, every day. At night, you stumble back to the quarters with legs that feel like wood. Your hands shake, your back throbs. The meal is corn mush, you eat it anyway. No one speaks much. Words take energy, and energy is a luxury. But tonight, someone speaks. An old woman, Mama Ruth, begins to hum a tune low and mournful, the kind that creeps up your spine and sits behind your eyes. Others join her, voices soft but steady. They don't sing in English, they sing in tongues older than this land, deeper than these swamps. It isn't joy, it's memory, defiance, prayer. You lie in the dark, listening, and somewhere in that quiet, your own voice hums too, almost without your permission. The song wraps around you like a blanket, not warm, but real. For the first time since you stepped onto that cursed ship, you feel something like yourself again. The next day is worse. Rain comes. Not a blessing here, but a curse. The fields flood further, and the water creeps up to your thighs. Your arms are heavier today. The blisters on your palms have opened. Dirt and grit rub into the wounds. And then, during a rest break, you meet her. Her name is Sarai. She's 17, but her eyes are older. She stands across the field line, on the women's side, her hands stained dark with mud. Her hair is tied back with a strip of blue, cloth faded, but still vibrant against the greyness of this place. You glance, once, then again. She notices. The overseer notices too. He snaps his fingers at you. Keep your eyes down, Daniel. Don't go thinking you're a man just yet. You look down, but not before Sarai meets your gaze once more. Not before you see the smallest flicker of something behind her eyes. Pity, curiosity, you don't know. But it stays with you, even as you return to your row. A week later, the punishments begin again. Someone has stolen something tobacco, they think. The white men don't know who did it, so they line everyone up at dusk. Men, women, children. The slaves from your quarter stand in one group, the others in theirs. The master himself appears this time. Elijah Dandridge. He's not a tall man, but he wears his authority like a crown. His coat is embroidered, his cane is polished, he smells of cloves and wine. He paces in front of you all, calm, measured. One of you has taken what is not yours, he says. I do not abide thieves. If the guilty party steps forward now, we end this quietly. No one moves. Very well, he says. And then he nods. 3 men step forward, overseers, armed with rods and ropes. They begin choosing at random. A boy from the cotton fields, a woman from the kitchen, a man from the sawmill. They are dragged to the whipping post. You watch. You do nothing. You're supposed to do nothing. Each lash is counted aloud. 50 per person. The boy doesn't make it past 30. His body goes limp. The others scream until their throats are raw. And then it's over. No one is allowed to speak of it, but that night the old woman hums again, and this time Sarai joins her. Her voice is steady, loud. The next day she is made to clean the stables alone, without gloves, without tools, a punishment in silence. That night you bring her a gourd of water. You shouldn't. You could be punished. But she takes it, nods, says nothing. You've never been more terrified, or more alive. The days blur into each other, not because they're uneventful, quite the opposite. They're brutal, punishing, endless, but because they are all the same. The sun rises and falls over the same fields. The whip cracks the same way. The food tastes the same bland, meagre, just enough to keep you standing. The faces around you remain unchanged, though slowly the brightness in their eyes dims. You begin to lose track of time. You stop counting days. Sundays are the only break in the rhythm a day, without work, but not truly rest. On the Sabbath, you're expected to wash your rags, clean your quarters, and attend services, led by Dandridge's personal chaplain, Reverend Tillman. A stern, pale man with a thin voice and a thick Bible, Tillman reads scripture with a sharp tongue and a hard stare. He speaks of obedience, of submission, of the curse of Ham. He tells you your suffering is ordained, that God disciplines his children, and that patience in bondage brings heavenly reward. No one dares argue, but the silence during his sermons feels heavier than the chains. On the 3rd Sunday, a man named Josiah speaks quietly as you walk back from the chapel. He's older than anyone else in the quarter. His beard is grey, his spine curved, but his eyes, sharp, focused. He don't know the God I know, Josiah murmurs, glancing around to make sure no overseers are in earshot. The God I know freed his people from Egypt, split the Red Sea. He don't tell no man to kneel to a whip. You nod, and that night you hear him whispering those same stories to the children in the far corner of the quarter stales of Moses, of plagues, of Pharaohs brought low by the wrath of heaven. The children listen with wide eyes, hanging on every word. Hope doesn't live long here, but it visits sometimes. Your body begins to change. Your hands grow rougher, your back stronger. You move faster now, your muscles shaped by necessity. The pain doesn't go away, just becomes familiar. Like a scar, you stop noticing. You're not sure if that's a good thing. You and Sarai cross paths more often. It's never planned. never spoken of. Just passing glances, small favors, a stolen smile when no one's looking. Once, she gives you half a boiled egg reel food from the kitchen scraps. It's the best thing you've tasted in months. There's danger in this. Everyone knows it. Relationships aren't allowed, not between slaves, not without permission, especially not young people. Love, if it grows at all here, grows in the dark, secret, risky, precious. You start to feel it's something real, something rebellious in the way she looks at you when she thinks no one is watching. Not pity, not curiosity, something deeper, something dangerous. And then something changes. The plantation welcomes a guest. One afternoon, Dandridge's cousin arrives from Virginia. His name is Charles Beckley, and he steps down from his carriage in polished boots and a powdered wig, flanked by 2 bodyguards and a black servant boy who never raises his eyes. Beckley walks through the plantation like he owns it, laughs loudly, inspects the slaves like merchandise. You are lined up with others as Beckley walks down the row. He stops in front of Sarai. She's standing tall, her hair is wrapped tightly, her hands clasped. She doesn't flinch, but you see the way her jaw tightens. Beckley turns to Dandridge. That one. I'll take her to the house tonight, just for the evening. Dandridge hesitates, just for a moment, then nods. The overseer steps forward, grabs Sarai by the elbow. She doesn't resist. She doesn't even look at you. She's taken away. That night, no songs are hummed. No stories are whispered. The quarters are silent. Sarai doesn't return the next morning. Or the next. On the 3rd day, she's brought back quiet, walking stiffly, eyes focused on nothing. She doesn't speak. No one asks what happened. Everyone already knows. The rage you feel sits heavy in your chest. It's not loud, not violent. It's slow, steady, burning like coal. It doesn't go away. You work harder that day. Push yourself past exhaustion. You don't speak, you don't look up. But inside, something is cracking. A week later, someone runs. It happens in the dead of night. A man named Thomas, barely 20, who's always talked about freedom like it was real, like it was close. He disappears during a storm. They find his empty pallet at dawn, soaked with rain. His shoes are gone, his meager belongings too. You don't know whether to feel hope or fear. The dogs are released within the hour. You hear them howling across the fields. 3 days later, they bring Thomas back. What's left of him? He's lashed to a wagon, half conscious, his shirt shredded, bite marks on his arms and legs. His eyes are swollen shut. They drag him to the center of the yard, where everyone is forced to watch. Dandridge speaks to you like your children. This is what happens to those who forget their place, he says, voice calm, almost gentle. Mercy is wasted on the disobedient. Thomas is whipped in front of you. 70 lashes. He doesn't scream after the first 10. His body stops reacting by 30. By 70, he's barely breathing. They leave him tied to the post for the night. He dies before morning. You help dig the grave. It's shallow. There's no marker. But Josiah leads a prayer anyway. Quiet, shaky, in a language older than English. That night, Sarai speaks to you again for the first time since Beckley. Freedom's still out there, she says, her voice low. Even if we never see it. You look at her. You don't say it aloud, but the words burn behind your teeth. I'm going to see it. I have to. 3 months pass. You learn the seasons of the plantation. The rains come and go. The crops change. Rice gives way to indigo, then cotton, The work never stops, the pain never leaves. But something shifts. You begin to hear whispers. Not just the quiet ones about food or songs or old gods. These whispers are different. Names, places, routes, risk. There's a man Jeremiah who works in the stables. He's quiet, keeps to himself. But he talks to Josiah one night, then to Isaac, then to you. There's a path through the marsh, he says, voice like gravel. Southwest, leads to the river. Beyond that, there's swampland too thick for dogs. You know what he's talking about. Escape. Not fantasy, not dreams. A plan. It's madness, of course. The odds are impossible. The consequences fatal. But you listen. And for the first time in your life, you start to consider what it would mean to run. To risk everything for the possibility of freedom. To finally stop surviving and start living. That night, as you lie awake in the dark, Sarai leans close. I heard what Jeremiah told you, she whispers. If you go, I go too. Her hand finds yours in the dark. You don't move. You don't speak. But you squeeze her hand back. The decision isn't made with fanfare or speeches, or the swelling music of a grand moment. It comes quietly, like a seed pushing through cracked earth. Not because it's safe, or even smart, but because it's necessary. You are not alone in this choice. Sarai, Jeremiah, Isaac, and now Ruth, the old woman whose humming has kept your nights alive. She volunteers without being asked. Ain't nothing left here for me but a slower death, she says. And I'd rather die running than rot in place. Josiah does not come. He holds your face in both hands and tells you, I'm too old. I'll slow you down. But you were born for more than chains. You remember what I said. God ain't forgot you. He gives you a small leather pouch's only possession. Inside is a scrap of cloth with symbols you don't recognize. From my mother's mother, he says. It kept her spirit safe. It'll do the same for you. The plan is simple, brutally so. On the night of the harvest festival, when Dandridge and his guests will be drinking and parading through the estate, you will slip out during the fireworks, when the dogs are locked up and the overseers distracted. You'll head through the marsh, wade the river, and vanish into the swamp beyond. From there, it's days of travel, maybe weeks, toward what? You don't know. But it has to be better than this. Every moment leading up to that night feels heavier, stretched by fear. You pretend nothing is different. You go to the fields. You listen to Tillman's sermons. You keep your eyes low and your back straight. But inside, your heart beats like a war drum. Isaac teaches you how to read stars. Ruth hides dried sweet potatoes beneath the cabin floor. Sarai secures a small flint stone from the blacksmith's corner something to make fire. Jeremiah maps out your route in the mud behind the stables every night with a stick and his finger. You'll pass 3 dead cypress trees, he explains. They bend toward the east. That's your sign. After that, the ground gets soft. Watch your step or you'll sink. Every detail is memorized, rehearsed. And still, doubt creeps in. What if the dogs are let loose early? What if the river's too deep? What if someone talks? What if you're caught? You think of Thomas, of the way he looked, tied to the wagon. You remember the sound of the whip against bone. But then you think of Sarai, of Josiah's eyes, of the word freedom, not spoken like a dream, but like a destination. The night arrives. The air smells of roasted meat and spilled ale. Lanterns flicker across the plantation like tiny fireflies. Music spills from the big house violins and drums and laughter, sharp and false like everything else behind those walls. You wear your plainest shirt, your lightest shoes. The sky above is clear, and the moon is thin. Perfect. When the fireworks begin, the quarter's empty. Most of the enslaved are called to perform dancing, serving food, pretending joy. You, Sarai, Ruth, Isaac, and Jeremiah slip away into the trees behind the sugar barn, hearts pounding so loudly you think the whole world must hear it. There is no turning back. You move fast. The marsh is cold, wet, cruel. Every step forward is a gamble. The water reaches your thighs. Mosquitoes swarm your faces. Snakes rustle in the reeds. But you keep going. The cypress trees are where they said they'd be 3 dead giants, bent like old men in prayer. You pass them, and your chest lifts slightly. A step, a sign, a promise. Then the river. It's black, wide, and silent. You wade in. It's deeper than you expected. The current tugs at your legs like greedy hands. Sarai stumbles. Isaac grabs her. Jeremiah whispers orders. Stay low. Don't fight the pull. Let it guide you. You make it across. Wet, cold, alive. You scramble onto the far bank, breathless, blinking mud from your eyes. No dogs. No shouts. No gunshots. You made it out. For now, the swamp is unlike anything you've ever seen. Trees grow from water, vines hang low like ropes. The air is thick with fog and buzzing insects. But it's also quiet. Still, it feels like a different world, a place that doesn't care who owns what. You travel at night, hide during the day, eat when you can roots, insects, whatever Ruth identifies as edible. She's the heart of your group. When your feet blister, she tears her own dress to wrap them. When Isaac grows feverish, she chews bitter leaves and presses the paste to his skin. Old ways still work, she mutters. White folks ain't erased everything. Jeremiah keeps you on course. He's been here before. Not all the way, but far enough to remember which moss points north, which bark means fresh water is near. He walks ahead with a stick, tapping the ground for soft patches, watching for snakes. Sarai is fire. She never complains, never falters. She's the first to carry someone's pack when they stumble. She keeps you sharp, focused. And you've never felt more alive. Every breath, every heartbeat feels earned. But freedom is no guarantee. On the 5th night, you find a sign literal and metaphorical. A carving in the trunk of a sycamore tree, a circle with an arrow pointing west. It's not natural. Jeremiah runs his fingers over it. This is it, the underground. The words hit like thunder. You've heard whispers legends of networks, safe houses, people who helped slaves escape. Most thought they were lies, tools to bait runaways into traps. But Jeremiah insists it's real. They'll take us farther, he says, beyond Georgia, maybe even north. That night, you reach a hut. Abandoned, but recently used. Smoke stains on the ceiling, a pile of clean rags in one corner. Inside, you find a loaf of bread wrapped in linen and a note carved into the wall. You are not alone. Keep west. Follow the lanterns. You cry. All of you do. Not from pain, but from the sheer weight of that sentence. You are not alone. The next 2 days are both harder and easier. Harder because you're hungrier. Your legs ache. Isaac's fever returns. You see snakes. You hear wolves. You feel the heat of pursuers, even if they're not yet visible. Easier because you now believe. There are lanterns. Small, hidden behind hollowed-out tree trunks. One every mile or so, enough to keep you on track. Then, The night everything changes. You're just past the edge of the swamp. Fields stretch ahead. A distant light flickers on a hill. Maybe a house, maybe a trap. Then you hear it. The baying of hounds. Not far. Jeremiah freezes. They're coming. No more hiding. You run. Through the brush, through thorns, over fallen logs. Isaac limps. Ruth holds his arm. You hear branches snapping behind you, shouts in the distance. Gunfire. A shot cracks the air. You duck. Sarai screams just once and falls. You stop. You drop to your knees beside her. She's been hit. The bullet tore through her leg. Blood flows fast. She's shaking, pale. We have to go, Jeremiah hisses. They're close. You look at her. She's biting her lips so hard it bleeds. Don't stop, she whispers. Keep going. You lift her. Throw her arm over your shoulder. She tries to protest, but you move anyway. She's light, broken, but alive. Jeremiah grabs Isaac. Ruth leads the way. The trees thin. The light on the hill grows brighter. A door opens. A figure steps out, lantern in hand. A woman, white, wearing a shawl. Over here, she shouts. You don't stop to question. You run straight toward her. Bullets hit the dirt behind you. She opens the door. You fall inside. She slams it shut, bolts it, and then everything is quiet. You're inside a safe house. Sarai is bleeding. Isaac is burning with fever. But you're in a place not owned by Dandridge, not ruled by a whip, not bound by law. The woman kneels beside Sarai. You're safe now, she says. My name is Margaret, and we've got a long road ahead. You can't believe it. You've made it this far. But this is only the beginning. You don't know how long you sit on that floor, your back against the door you were sure would never open. Your breath comes in gasps, like it's only now remembering it can be free. The others are quiet too. You're all too stunned to speak. Not because the danger is over, but because this time it didn't catch you. The air inside the house is different. Clean, dry, still. The floor is made of real wood, no mud, no straw, no filth. The windows are shuttered tight, the walls lined with heavy curtains to block out light. You count 6 oil lamps, all dimmed to near darkness. A cast iron stove sits in the centre of the room, and above it hangs a dried wreath of herbs, lavender, rosemary, and something else you don't recognize. But what grips you most isn't the safety. It's the woman. Margaret. She's middle-aged, thin, with hands stained from years of work. Her dress is simple, plain grey with a high collar. A white scarf covers her hair. Her face is lined with care, but her voice is calm, certain. There's something steady about her, like a rock jutting out of a flood. She moves first to Sarai, whose blood pools beneath her skirt. We'll need to remove the bullet, she says, and there's no hesitation in her tone. Get her onto the table. You and Isaac lift her gently. Sarai doesn't scream. She's too far gone for that. Her eyes flutter as you lay her on the wooden surface. She grips your wrist for just a second, then slips out of consciousness. Ruth watches silently, lips moving in prayer. Margaret rolls up her sleeves and pulls a drawer open, revealing a small metal box. Inside tools, tweezers, scissors, rolls of cloth. You've never seen anything like it. A basin of hot water is already boiling on the stove, and she moves quickly, cleaning the wound with cloth and crushed herbs. Hold her steady, she says to you. You do. You press Sarai's shoulders down as Margaret inserts the tweezers. It takes minutes that feel like hours. Finally, with a soft grunt, she pulls the bullet free and drops it into a tin cup. The sound of metal hitting metal is sharper than thunder. "She's lucky," Margaret says. "It missed the bone. If infection doesn't set in, she'll walk again." You've never believed in luck. But tonight, maybe you do. There are others in the house. After Sarai is settled in a side room, Margaret calls out softly. 2 people emerge. A man named Moses, tall, wiry, black man, with greying hair, and a young white boy named Eli, maybe 12 years old. You flinch at first when you see the boy. All your life, white boys were the beginning of cruelty. But this one just nods and sets down a tray of water and cornbread without speaking. Moses helps Isaac lie down. The fever has left him nearly blind with heat. His skin is flushed, his breath shallow. Ruth takes over tending to him, using cool cloths and whispers that sound like half-sung prayers. Margaret explains everything in short, efficient words. "This is a station," she says. "One of many. I've been doing this for 15 years. My parents before me. You'll stay 2 nights. No more. Then we move you." "Move us where?" Jeremiah asks, still standing guard by the window, arms crossed. "North," she replies. "As far as Pennsylvania, if God wills it." The name hits like a stone in a still pond. Pennsylvania. A free state. The place where if you survive the journey, you're no longer considered property. A place where chains can be broken by law. It's the first time someone says it out loud. The goal, the end. And for the first time, you allow yourself to believe that maybe, just maybe, you might reach it. But freedom has a cost, and its price is never paid in gold. That first night, you can't sleep. Even with a full belly, even with a blanket over your back and a roof above your head, your body has forgotten how to relax. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind outside makes you flinch. You lie next to the stove, eyes wide, ears tuned to the silence. Sarai moans once in her sleep. You rise immediately, limping over to her side. Her face is pale, sweaty, but calm. Her breathing is steady. Her hand twitches, then settles. You stay there, sitting by her side, until morning. When the sun rises, you catch a glimpse of it through a tiny crack in the shutters. A thin line of gold, soft and glowing. You haven't seen the sunrise like this in years, without chains, without orders. It looks like hope. The next day is for recovery. Ruth and Moses tend to Isaac's fever. He sweats through his shirt and speaks nonsense, calling out names you don't know. Ruth never leaves his side. She hums to him softly, sometimes just rocking in silence. By evening, the fever begins to break. Sarai wakes. Her voice is hoarse, but her eyes are clear. "You carried me," she says. You nod. She doesn't say thank you. She doesn't need to. Margaret teaches you how the underground works. "There are homes like this one all across the South," she says. "Hidden, waiting, some run by freedmen, some by white abolitionists. We send word through symbols, quilts hung on porches, carvings on fence posts, lanterns lit at night." "But how do you stay safe?" you ask. She looks at you, eyes tired but firm. "We don't. Not really. We're watched, suspected, raided. I've lost friends, neighbors. But I serve a higher law, and I trust that truth always wins in the end." She shows you a mapper rough, hand-drawn thing, marked with smudged ink. "You'll head north from here. There's a Quaker man near Greensboro, then a church in Virginia. After that, Maryland, then, if you survive, Pennsylvania." Each name feels like a promise. A rung in a ladder leading out of hell. The second night brings danger. Around midnight, a knock. 3 soft raps, then silence. You sit up, heart racing. Margaret moves without panic, grabbing a shotgun from beneath the floorboards. She motions for everyone to stay down. Another knock. This time, 2 raps, 1 pause, then 1 more. She exhales. It's ours. The door opens to reveal a man in ragged clothing, his face streaked with soot. He's carrying a girl. Young, maybe 9. Raid near Savannah, he says. We barely made it. They killed her father. The girl doesn't speak. Her eyes are empty. Margaret pulls her inside. Offers no questions. Just food, water, warmth. You watch it all in silence. And you realize you are part of something bigger now. Not just an escape, a resistance. In the morning, it's time. Sarai's wound is bandaged tight. Isaac can walk, barely. Ruth moves slower but steady. Jeremiah is silent as ever, but his eyes have fire. Margaret gives you Sapliessa satchel of bread and jerky, a flintstone, a small compass. Then she pulls you aside. Do you believe in providence? She asks. You hesitate. I don't know. She places something in your hand. A small wooden cross, hand-carved, worn smooth with age. This belonged to my son, she says quietly. He died helping a boy like you. You try to give it back. She closes your fingers around it. Carry it, she says, not because it'll save you, but because it reminds you someone thought your life was worth dying for. You don't have words for that. You nod. And then you leave. Out the back door. Through the orchard. Past the old mill. Into the dark again. But this time, with light inside you. The road ahead is still long. Still dangerous. But now, you walk it with purpose. With fire. With others beside you. And every step is a rebellion. The woods feel different now. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You're not a boy wandering without aim anymore. You're not prey, scrambling to survive without knowing where the next step leads. Now, you carry names. Faces. Stories. The weight of everything that came before, and somewhere far ahead, there's something called freedom. It's hard to believe in it freedom. You've never seen it, never touched it. The idea sounds like a myth, whispered in secret, like a ghost story. But you keep walking, because you have to. Because what's behind you is worse than anything that could be ahead. This stretch of the journey is the most grueling yet. You move mostly at night, crawling through thickets, creeping across ridgelines, and staying low under brush. There's a constant hum in the back of your header, whisper of danger, always. The rustling of a rabbit could be a patrol. The snap of a twig might be a tracker. The dark isn't empty, it's alive with threat. Each night, you push forward for hours. Each day, you hide. In caves, in hollow trees, under brush piles, camouflaged with mud and pine needles. You don't dare make a fire. You drink from shallow creeks and ration your food until your stomach turns against you in protest. But you keep going, because you're not alone. There's Sarai. She walks now, though she leans heavily on Ruth's arm. She's quiet, but sharper than ever. Each night before sleep, she traces maps into the dirt with a twig, recreating Margaret's plan from memory. She marks the next stop, predicts distances, studies the stars, like they're instructions from God. Isaac is recovering too. His fever's broken, but the sickness took something out of him. He's thinner, paler, but not weaker. He sings sometimes quiet spirituals in the dead of night, just loud enough for you to hear. Songs you remember your own mother humming before dawn. Songs of sorrow, but also of rising. Ruth, she's the glue holding everything together. She tends wounds, checks feet for blisters, comforts the little girl from the last house who still hasn't spoken a word. Ruth feeds her first, wraps her in an extra blanket at night, wipes her face clean each morning with the same care she'd give her own child. And Jeremiah, he's still the last to sleep and the first to wake, watching, listening. He trusts no one. Not even God, maybe, but he trusts you. That's enough. You keep going. Because turning back isn't an option. And staying still means death. On the fifth night, something changes. You're following a stream, moving slow under a waxing moon, when Jeremiah halts. You freeze mid-step. He raises a hand, listens, then slowly crouches. You follow his lead. And then you hear it. Hoofbeats. Far off, faint, but there. Not fast, not galloping, just steady, measured, like a patrol making rounds. You all crouch beneath a grove of pine trees, hearts hammering so loud you're sure the horses can hear it. Then a voice, drifting through the trees like smoke. 2 slaves ran through here last week. They caught one near Rally Boy, couldn't have been more than 12. Shot him through the neck. Laughter. Another voice responds, they're breeding like rabbits. Won't be long before we round up every last one. The hoofbeats come closer. You bury yourself under leaves, lying so still it feels like your chest might cave in. A shadow passes just feet from where you lie. And then another. 2 men on horseback. One wears a grey coat with brass buttons. The other has a shotgun across his lap. You don't breathe. You don't blink. You just pray. Silently, repeatedly. Until, finally, the hoofbeats fade. You don't move for another hour. When you do, your limbs are stiff, numb, but your heart is still pounding, like it knows the margin of your survival was razor thin. That night, you keep moving, even when your feet bleed. Even when Isaac stumbles and Ruth has to help him up again and again. You keep moving because there's no other choice. The next safe house is farther than Margaret said. A farmhouse in the foothills near Greensboro. You arrive 2 days later than planned, hungry and barely upright. Sarai collapses onto the porch without knocking. You knock 3 times. Then once. Then again, twice. Nothing. No response. Ruth knocks next. Then calls out, "Friend." Still nothing. You wait in silence, hearts heavy. And then the door creaks open. An old black man peeks out, barely 5 feet tall, with a crooked back and eyes like cloudy glass. He studies you for a long time. "You're late," he says. You explain what happened, the detour, the patrol, the injuries. He nods, then opens the door fully. "Come in. You've got angels watching you." Inside, it's quiet. Smells like tobacco and old wood. He introduces himself as Amos. Says he's been watching this part of the route since before you were born. His hands tremble as he pours you water. His voice wavers when he prays over your food. But his heart is strong. He shows you maps even older than Margaret's. Warns you of patrols near the Virginia line. Says bounty hunters are offering $50 a head near Alexandria. He tells stories, too. Of escapes. Of captures. Of slaves who made it, and of those who didn't. One sticks with you. A boy named Daniel, only 13, made it all the way to Maryland. Almost reached Pennsylvania, shot at the riverbank. The water carried his body north. But he made it, Amos says. His soul made it. That's what matters. You nod. Not because it makes sense, but because it's all you can do. You rest 2 nights in Amos's house. He feeds you stew, lets you sleep on cots, gives you an old leather satchel full of smoked meat and hard biscuits. Before you leave, he gives each of you something small. To Sarai, a worn knife. To Ruth, a red scarf once worn by his daughter. To Isaac, a metal ring. To Jeremiah, a compass. To you, a book. Small, leather-bound, blank pages. You don't know what to do with it. He places it in your hands, fingers trembling. Write, he says, so they can't erase you. You don't know how to write. Not yet. But you keep the book, close to your chest, like it holds a future you haven't met yet. Back on the road. Another stretch of woods. Colder now. The trees are taller, the wind sharper. Your hands crack in the dry air. Your skin breaks in places you can't bandage. But the air smells cleaner. The nights are clearer. The stars seem brighter. And then, one morning, just as dawn breaks, you hear it. Church bells. Far off. Soft, but unmistakable. It's a town. A real one. You crawl up a hillside and peek out through the trees. There it is. Wooden buildings. A white steeple. A mill with a turning wheel. Smoke from chimneys. You recognize it from Margaret's map. It's the town before the river. Which means, one more night. One more push. And you'll be at the crossing. The water between Virginia and Maryland. Between slavery and something else. Not safety, not yet. But closer. So close. You almost cry. But you don't. You just whisper, one more night. And you prepare. The town of Portsville is smaller than you imagined, but it might as well be a fortress. Every door is shut tight. Every window stares like an eye. You watch from the hilltop at first light, belly empty, legs trembling, trying to make sense of what kind of place this is. Jeremiah crouches beside you, silent as a stone. The others wait deeper in the woods, hidden, their eyes fixed on you for answers you don't have. The church bell tolls once. A rooster crows. Somewhere near the far side of town, you hear a woman singing while drawing water from a well. Everything is quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that knows how to bite. Your job is to find the guide. Margaret said there'd be a man named Elias Hiria Friedman posing as a stable hand, working at the far edge of town. You're supposed to say a phrase to him, something innocuous. My cousin keeps a chestnut mare. He's supposed to reply, and I keep a black stallion. If he doesn't say that, you walk away. No questions, no second chances. So now you're here, cold, hungry, standing between what you know and what might be waiting on the other side of that river. You pull Ruth's scarf tighter around your neck, tuck the little book Amos gave you inside your coat, and you go. You walk through town, with your head down, like you belong, like you're supposed to be there. You pass 3 white men loading sacks of corn onto a wagon and a girl no older than 8 sweeping the porch of the general store. None of them look too closely. One man eyes your torn boots and mutters something about drifters, but he doesn't stop you. You spot the stable on the outskirts, a single wooden structure with a rusted weather vane and a corral full of sleepy horses munching hay. A man is out front, black, tall, maybe in his 40s, with a wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his eyes. He brushes a chestnut mare. Your heart skips. You walk toward him slowly, counting your steps. He doesn't look up. You clear your throat and say, My cousin keeps a chestnut mare. He pauses. Just for a second. Then he lifts his head and narrows his eyes. You wait. His mouth opens. You brace. I don't have time for riddles. Who told you that nonsense? Your stomach drops. You start to turn. Then he grabs your wrist. His voice lowers. I said I keep a black stallion, didn't I? You exhale, slow and shaky. He releases you. I had to be sure, he says, finally smiling. We've had spies around these parts. Can't be too careful. He jerks his head toward the stable. Come inside. We talk in there. Inside, the air smells like hay and leather. Warm compared to the wind outside. Elias moves quickly, checking over his shoulder, bolting the door, then leading you behind a partition into a back room. You alone? He asks. No. 6 of us. One's a child. Any sick? Wounded? You nod. 1. Can he move? He's made it this far. Elias rubs his chin. You'll need to cross the river before daybreak tomorrow. Tonight's your only shot. They'll be scouring the area come dawn. Word is, they're offering 75 for escapees now, dead or alive. You flinch. He watches you closely. You scared? You nod. He nods back. Good. That means you're still breathing. The plan is simply on paper. Elias will meet you at a dock 2 miles north of town. There's a small canoe tied beneath the brush. He'll row you across under moonlight. The water's only 20 yards wide there, but the current's fast, and the bank on the Maryland side is steep. You'll have to climb. Quietly. Once you're across, he says, you run east, 1/2 mile. There'll be a barn with a red roof and a lantern out front. That's Miss Helen's place. She'll take you in. You nod again. It sounds easy, but nothing ever is. Before you leave, Elias puts a hand on your shoulder. You've done well to get this far, he says, but don't think the worst is over. Freedom is a door, not a place. Crossing the river just gets you to the doorstep. You don't sleep that afternoon. None of you do. You sit under a pine grove just beyond town, watching the sun sink lower and lower, watching the sky bleed purple and orange. Sarai sharpens her knife. Jeremiah mutters prayers you don't recognize. Ruth hums softly to the little girl, who clings to her hand like it's the only thing tethering her to this world. You write your name in the little book Amos gave you. Just once. Just your name. Then you close it and tie it shut with a strip of cloth. You keep it close. Whatever happens, that name won't be lost. The night is cold. The stars cut through the sky like glass. You move single file, following the creek north until you see the silhouette of Elias near the shore. He doesn't speak, just waves you forward. You help Sarai into the canoe first, then the child, then Ruth. Isaac and Jeremiah climb in last. You sit in the middle, knees drawn to your chest, feeling every ripple of water beneath the fragile wood. Elias rows slowly, deliberately. The current pulls you sideways, more than forward. The canoe groans. You grip the sides so hard your knuckles crack. Halfway across, something flashes. On the far bank light, a torch. Then another. Voices shouting. Dogs barking. Elias curses under his breath. They're early. Hold on. He rows harder now, abandoning stealth. Jeremiah pulls out his knife. Ruth shields the girl. Sarai grips your hand. You're almost there. The boat scrapes against rock. Go! Elias shouts. Now! You jump. The water is waist deep and freezing. You help Sarai up the bank, scrambling on hands and knees through mud and thorns. Isaac stumbles, Jeremiah grabs him. Ruth grabs the girl and runs. You all run. The barking gets closer. Gunshots crack behind you. A bullet splinters a tree just feet away. You don't look back. You just run. Two up the ridge. Through briars that tear your clothes. Across frozen soil that slices your feet. Until you see it. A barn. Red roof. Lantern glowing in the dark. You sprint. Faster than you ever thought possible. And you don't stop until the barn door opens. A woman stands in the doorway. Older. White hair. Rifle in her hands. She scans you all with eyes like steel. Then nods. In. Quick. Before they see the light. The barn smells like hay and molasses. It's warm. Safe. The woman Miss Helen locks the door behind you. Then she turns to the group and says one word. Welcome. You collapse onto the floor. Breathing hard. Chest heaving. You made it. Not free yet. Not by a long shot. But alive. On the other side. And that's more than most. You close your eyes, clutch the book to your chest, and whisper one word. Thank you. You don't know if it's a prayer or just a breath. But either way, it's enough. You don't wake up the next morning, because you never really sleep. You close your eyes for hours, body curled in a heap of straw and burlap, but your mind keeps running like you're still in the woods, still hearing dogs and whips and snapping branches and the sound of someone being caught. You listen for gunfire, for footsteps, for the barn door being kicked in, but all you hear is Ruth breathing softly beside you and the slow creak of old timber in the wind. When dawn breaks, the others are already stirring. Miss Helen returns just before sunrise. Her face is set like stone. She doesn't say much at first. Just walks through the barn with a canteen of water, passing it around, and a handful of boiled eggs wrapped in cloth. You eat in silence. One bite, two, and then you stop not because you're full, but because the moment you eat too fast, your stomach cramps, not used to real food. She came from the south herself, Sarai whispers beside you, eyes on Helen. White woman. Husband was a slaver. Beat her so bad one night she ran. Been helping people ever since. You don't know if it's true, but Helen has a long scar that runs from her temple down through her cheek, disappearing under the collar of her shirt. And when she talks, her voice sounds like someone who's walked through fire and come out the other side with her mouth still closed. After breakfast, Helen brings out a map. You've got two choices, she says. West to Pittsburgh, long, cold, and crawling with bounty men. Or north to Lancaster, there's a Quaker church there, folks who can get you to Philadelphia, then up to Canada. She traces the path with a gnarled finger. You'll need papers, and you'll need luck. She looks at each of you in turn. Do you still want this? None of you speak. Because what would be the point? There's no going back, no plantation to return to, no master to beg for mercy. You'd be tortured on sight, hanged or worse. And more than that, more than fear, more than desperation, there's something else now growing inside you. A quiet, steady rage. And a need, not just to run, but to live. Helen takes you in shifts twoe by two into her root cellar. Hidden under the floorboards, past sacks of flour and pickled beans, she's got a trunk the size of a coffin. Inside, old coats, boots, dried meat, canvas satchels, coins, and papers. Dozens of them. Take what fits, she says. You'll look like farmhands. Might help. Won't stop a patrol from checking you, but it'll buy you seconds. Seconds matter. You try on a coat too big for your frame, and boots that blister your heels the second you move, but you keep them anyway. Ruth wraps the child her name is Amina. You learn in 3 layers, and slips her a scarf stitched with tiny red flowers. "These belong to others before you," Helen says. "Not all of them made it. Don't waste what they left behind." That night, you leave the barn and travel by lantern light through pine groves and snowy hollows. The air is so cold it cuts through your coat and makes your teeth ache. The roads are quiet, but every noisy an owl hooting, a branch snapping makes you freeze. Every shadow looks like a man with a rope. By midnight, you reach a cabin deep in the woods. An elderly black couple waits inside, John and Martha, former slaves. They greet you with smiles that don't reach their eyes, then usher you in without a word. "Only one night," John says. Then you keep moving. You nod. But that night, as you lie by the fire, you hear John whisper to Martha, "3 came last week, 2 boys and a woman. They never reached the ridge." You turn your face to the wall and don't sleep again. A week passes, like a blur of frost and hunger and aching feet. You walk through forests so thick the trees feel like prison bars. You crouch in ditches while riders pass on horseback. You forge a frozen stream at dawn, your boots filling with ice water. One night you sleep in the hollow of a dead tree. Another night you sleep standing, huddled around a fire you don't dare light. Sarai's limp gets worse. Jeremiah carries Isaac on his back. Amina won't stop crying. Ruth hums lullabies to her that sound like songs from your village, songs you barely remember, songs you aren't sure you ever really knew. And then, on the 9th day, you see something that stops you in your tracks. A gallows, right there, on the edge of a clearing. Fresh rope, 2 nooses. A sign nailed to the post, "Fugitive Justice," and below it, a name scrawled in black ink, Jeremiah. You all freeze. Jeremiah stares at the sign for a long time. Then he spits on the ground and walks on. You follow, but the world feels thinner after that, like the trees themselves are watching, like the sky has grown smaller. And then it happens. You're crossing a bridge, narrow, old, barely wide enough for 2 people. Below, the river churns with melted snow. You're halfway across when the dog barks. Then another. Then the shout, "Hey, stop there!" You turn. 3 men on horseback, muskets drawn. "No sudden moves," one yells. "Down on the ground." Sarai screams. Jeremiah shoves Ruth forward. "Run!" You bolt. The bridge shudders beneath your feet. Gunfire cracks behind you. Isaac stumbles. Ruth grabs him. Amina slips. Sarai catches her. You don't look back. You keep running. The woods swallow you. But not all of you. Because when you reach the ridge, someone's missing. Jeremiah. You stop. Turn. But Sarai grabs your coat and pulls you behind a fallen log. No, keep going. But he knew what he was doing. You hear more gunshots. Then silence. Then the crows. That night, you make it to the edge of Lancaster County. There's a barn with a blue door. A white man in a black hat waits there. He introduces himself as Samuel. He's a Quaker, offers you water, food, shelter, no questions. Ruth cries when she sees the stove. Sarai sits and doesn't speak. You bury your head in your hands, and for the first time, you feel it. Grief. Real grief. Because Jeremiah didn't just die for himself. He died so you could keep going, so the child could live, so the fire could be passed. Samuel tells you there's a man in Philadelphia who can forge new papers. A preacher named Elijah Green. He tells you to go there. You leave the next morning. Every step forward is heavier now. But you walk it anyway. Because the story isn't finished. Not yet. And neither are you. The road to Philadelphia is both cruel and quiet. Not cruel in the way that chains dig into wrists or overseers bark commands under a burning sky, but cruel in the way it gives you just enough hope to feel again, and then reminds you exactly how fragile that hope is. Trees become more sparse, roads more crowded. You see wagons, farmers, women carrying baskets, and even children playing by a riverbank. And you're supposed to walk right through it. Like you belong. Like you haven't just left a friend behind, on a bridge where the snow still drinks blood. Ruth holds Amina tight to her chest. Sarai keeps her head down. Isaac won't stop asking about Jeremiah. He whispers it. Where's Uncle Jerry? Why didn't he come with us? Over and over. Like if he just says it enough, someone will give him a better answer than the one you all carry in silence. You don't tell him what you saw when you glanced back through the trees. You don't tell him about the rope, or the way one of the men laughed. You just squeeze his hand and say, we'll talk when we get there. There's always a there. Always some far-off place that's supposed to be better, supposed to be safer. But the roads wind in circles, and the sky stays grey, and for every kind stranger who offers you bread or a blanket, there's another pair of eyes that lingers too long. Another man who asks, where you're headed, with too much interest. Another rider who passes slowly, watching. You reach Philadelphia just before dusk. The city isn't what you imagined. It smells of smoke and sewage, and the streets are full of noise-iron wheels on cobblestone, shouting vendors, barking dogs. But there's life here, real life. Black men walking unchained. Women in aprons, selling bread. Children in clean clothes. And for a moment, your heart stutters, because it looks like freedom. Almost. Until you feel the weight of your paper in your pocket. Until you remember how easy it would be for someone to grab you by the collar and ask for proof, real proof, and then drag you right back. Or worse. Because in Pennsylvania, the law says you're free only if no one comes to claim you. And where you came from, there are plenty who'd claim you still. Elijah Green lives at the edge of the city, in a narrow brick house with a wooden sign that reads, Books, Bibles. You hesitate on the stoop, but Sarai pushes you forward. He's expecting us, she says. You knock. The door opens. Elijah Green is not what you expect. He's tall, dark-skinned, and blind in one eye. The other eye flickers with sharp intelligence. He doesn't smile, doesn't speak right away, just looks you up and down, and then steps aside. Get in, quickly. You enter a room lined wall-to-wall with books, real ones, leather-bound, stacked in crates, piled on tables, some balanced in crooked towers on the floor. In the back corner, there's a desk, a lamp, and a stack of forged manumission papers. I know who you are, he says simply. I know who you lost. You freeze. He looks straight at you, not through you, at you. You're not the first, won't be the last. That's the cruel truth of it. You try to speak, but your throat is thick. I don't want comfort, you finally manage. I want to know what comes next. He nods. Then sit down. For hours, Elijah walks you through what comes next. He teaches you to say your new name without hesitation. Joseph Williams, he says. Freeborn in Delaware, raised by a widowed aunt. Traveling north to find work in a lumber mill. Keep the story simple. Keep it the same, every time. You practice. Joseph Williams. Delaware. Aunt Martha. Lumber mill. He corrects your posture, your speech, even the way you fold your hands. You act like a slave, he says bluntly. Even free. You carry yourself like someone waiting to be punished. How am I supposed to act? You snap, louder than you mean. Like you deserve to breathe. The words knock the wind out of you. Because some part of you doesn't. Some part of you still hears overseers every time you close your eyes. Still dreams of dogs and nooses. Still believes freedom is something meant for other people. But Elijah doesn't let you dwell. We leave tomorrow, he says. Where? New York, then Canada. Canada? There's a community outside St. Catherine's. People like us. Free, settled, safe. You don't believe the word safe anymore, but you nod. Because you don't have another option. Because forward is the only direction left. The journey north is even colder than before. This time, it's by wagon. Elijah drives. You all ride hidden under tarps and crates. At checkpoints, he flashes real papers, speaks perfect English, charms soldiers with scripture and smiles. You don't say a word. You don't move. You don't even breathe too loud. One afternoon, the wagon hits a rut and the tarp slips. A guard peers in. His eyes narrow. Then flick to Elijah. You transporting livestock? Old furniture, Elijah replies smoothly. Church donations. The guard climbs up, opens a crate, finds a Bible, finds a pair of boots, but not you, because you're buried beneath a false bottom, heart pounding, teeth clenched, praying without words. And then the lid closes, and the wagon moves again. You don't speak for hours. When you finally emerge, Ruth is sobbing quietly. Sarai holds Isaac so tightly he can't breathe. Elijah doesn't speak. But that night, he gives you each a hot potato wrapped in cloth. A reminder, he says. Of what? He looks up. That you're still here. New York is louder than Philadelphia, and just as dangerous. Elijah leads you through back alleys and butcher shops, through prayer halls and bakeries, never staying anywhere more than a few hours. One night, he takes you to a tall house on Canal Street, run by a black woman named Temperance. She has sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. I can take 2, she says. The rest have to go tomorrow. You don't know who will be left behind. But you don't ask. Because Elijah already knows. That night, he calls you aside. I've watched you, he says. You've got a fire, but fire needs direction. It'll either burn down the house or light a path. You stare at him. I'm no leader. You might have to be. I'm not ready. You won't ever be. He presses something into your hand. It's a scrap of paper, a list of names, safe houses, routes, passwords. This is what I've used, he says. It's not perfect, it won't last forever, but it's saved lives. Why are you giving it to me? Because I'm staying. You blink. What? I'm wanted in 4 states. I've used every name I can think of. I can't go further north without putting everyone in danger. But you still have time. He claps a hand on your shoulder. You keep walking, and when you get there, you remember. You tell your story. You help the next one. That's how we win. You don't speak for a long time. Then, finally, I will. He nods and walks away. You never see him again. The next morning, you and Ruth and Sarai and the children are smuggled out of New York. Your guide is a white man, a schoolteacher named Jonas, nervous, young, but kind. He doesn't talk much, but when the boat crosses into Canada, he smiles. There it is, he says. What? St. Catherine's. You look up and see it. A cluster of homes, smoke from chimneys, people in the streets, a church steeple. And for the first time in your life, you feel something like peace. Not total peace, not safety, but possibility. You step onto the dock and breathe. You are free. But your story, it's just beginning. You don't realize you're holding your breath until your feet touch Canadian soil. The moment is quiet, not triumphant, not dramatic. No crowds cheer, no bells ring, no church doors fling open in celebration. The dock is muddy, the wind cuts like a blade, and yet you know. Deep in your chest you know. This place, this stretch of land, these trembling steps forward, they are yours. It's over. No more hiding in cellars, no more forgeries clutched against your ribs, no more waiting for boots to echo on floorboards in the middle of the night. You're here, alive. And for the first time in your life, underground doesn't mean buried. Sarai doesn't speak when she steps off the boat, but her hand tightens around Isaac's so hard her knuckles whiten. Ruth falls to her knees in the mud, whispering words you can't hear. Maybe thanks. Maybe names. Maybe both. You look back only once back at the grey water, the frost-bitten deck, the low fog swallowing the harbour. And then you walk forward. There's no ceremony in St. Catherine's. Freedom here isn't loud. It's not bold. It's not coated in stars and banners and songs. It's quiet. It's humble. It looks like a woman hanging laundry while humming. A man chopping firewood with his shirt sleeves rolled up. Children tumbling through snowdrifts with shoes on their feet shoes, not splinters or frostbite. And then there are the eyes. The first time someone looks you in the eye, really looks at you not as property, not with suspicion, not as a ghost or a threat, you almost look away out of habit, but they hold your gaze, warm, curious, human. No one here flinches when you walk past. No one crosses the street. No one barks your name with a whip coiled at their hip. You meet a man named Thomas Bailey that first day. He's built like a barn door and carries himself like someone who's already survived more winters than most see in a lifetime. He points to a cluster of small cabins near the tree line. They're open, built 'em last spring. Fireplaces work. Roofs don't leak. You can take the corner one. You try to thank him, but he just waves you off. No thanks needed. I got here same as you. Someone helped me. Now I help you. That's how we keep it going. It takes you a full day just to understand what it. The people here call it the circle. A web of survivors, families, workers, preachers, seamstresses, carpenters, teachers all, former slaves. All once hunted. All now building something together. It's not perfect. The Canadian winters are brutal. Jobs are hard to find. Money even harder. And racism, though different than in the colonies, still lingers like mildew. But here, at least, no one owns you. Here, if you bleed, it's because you chopped wood wrong, not because someone wanted to make an example of you. And when the frost melts in April, you're still alive to see the flowers grow. Life in St. Catherine's is not easy. That becomes clear quickly. You rise at dawn, split logs, fix shingles, plant rows. Ruth takes in sewing, mending shirts and coats and dresses by lamplight. Sarai volunteers at the local church, helping the children read. And you try everything. Masonry, woodwork, even tending to a neighbour's garden. You are not good at any of it. But you're trying. And somehow, trying feels like breathing again. One night, while the fire crackles low and Isaac sleeps against Sarai's lap, you unfold the paper Elijah gave you. the list of names, codes, safe houses. Some are already crossed out. Some you don't recognize. But others you do. One, in particular, is circled in charcoal. P.M. Carpenter in New Jersey. Risky route, smuggles through swamps. You stare at it for a long time. Ruth notices. You're not thinking of going back, she says quietly. You don't answer. Don't be foolish. I'm not, You pause. I know what it's like. I know the way now. And what if you get caught? Then I get caught. Sarai's eyes flick toward you, tired and wide. You survived. You made it. Isn't that enough? But that's just it. Surviving isn't enough anymore. Not when so many didn't. Not when Jeremiah's blood is still soaked into a bridge 2 states south. Not when the voices you heard behind the walls of barns and under trapdoors still haunt your dreams. Not when, every day, someone else is being dragged onto a ship, onto a block, into a chain. You lower your voice. I can't forget them. I don't want you to, Ruth says. But you don't owe them your life. You owe them your living. That silence again? Heavy, thick. Then you say, I'll wait until spring. Spring comes fast in Canada, and with it, travelers. The church becomes a place of whispers again, quiet meetings after service, a bell code that rings once for danger, twice for safe, 3 times for bring them in. The circle isn't just a community, it's a junction, a spoke on the wheel of the Underground Railroad. And though you're not ready to go back south, yet you offer to help the ones who come through. You teach them the path from the dock to the cabins, how to avoid the sheriff's office, where to find dry boots, who to trust. And, slowly, you become one of them, the helpers. Just like Elijah, just like Temperance, just like the nameless boy who pulled you out of that cellar back in Virginia. One night, you sit with a man named Moses who fled Maryland after his wife was taken. He holds a Bible in one hand and nothing in the other. His fingers won't stop shaking. He's lost, hungry, grieving. You pour him a bowl of stew and say, Eat, you're safe. He looks up at you, tears in his beard, and he asks, How do you know? You don't have a perfect answer, but you sit beside him and say, Because I made it, and you did too. Sometimes that's enough. By midsummer, Ruth has built a reputation as the best seamstress in town. Sarai begins teaching children at the church full time. Isaac plays with a wooden hoop in the yard and rarely talks about Virginia anymore. And you build houses, fences, trust. But more than anything, you build stories. You write down names, dates, memories. You keep track of every person who passes through, every journey, every false name that gave someone a new life. You write it all by candlelight, in journals wrapped in cloth, and hide them in a hollow beneath your cabin floor. You write Jeremiah's name first, and then you write your real one, not Joseph. Not the name from your forged papers, the one your mother whispered to you before they tore her away, the one they tried to beat out of you. You write it, underline it, and breathe. One morning, a letter arrives. It's from Elijah. Short, faded, almost illegible. He is alive, still in Philadelphia, still helping. He says, The line holds, we keep pushing. You were right to leave, but one day you'll be needed again. You read it 5 times. Then you fold it and place it beside your journals and begin packing. Ruth doesn't argue this time. Sarai hugs you tightly, then steps back. You know the way, she says. Yes. Then go. She presses something into your palm, a small iron cross on a string. For luck, she says, and for faith. And just like that, you're off again. Not running, not fleeing, not hiding. Walking, with your head up, because this time you're not escaping. This time you're going back. The South has changed. Or maybe it hasn't tanned. You're the one who's different now. Maybe that's what freedom does. It doesn't just feed you or shelter you. It sharpens you, turns your senses into something keener, makes you see things you missed before because you were too broken to notice. You step off the wagon near the Carolina border with boots instead of bare feet. You walk like a man who's tasted air that didn't reek of blood and cane stalks. And your eyes, they no longer scan the ground for permission. They scan the horizon for openings. You don't come back the way you left. You come back with a plan. The papers in your coat are forgeries, yes, but they're cleaner this time, more polished. They say you're Peter Marston, a freedman from Ohio, trained in carpentry and travel-worn from the long road southward. You're looking for work. You're looking for land. You're polite but hard-edged, tired but God-fearing. You even carry a Bible with your name inscribed in it, burnt into the leather. But most importantly, you carry the list. It's grown now. Expanded. Back in Canada, you added every name of every place you knew. You memorized routes, watched weather patterns. You know which marshes can be walked through, and which will suck down your boots and never give them back. You know what towns have sympathetic pastors. You know which plantations have overseers with blind eyes and which have dogs that smell lies from 100 yards away. And, on the margins of the list, there are names, people, families, some marked with crosses, some with circles, some scratched out. You don't let yourself pause too long on the ones that are gone. You find the others. Your first stop is Dorchester County, a quiet stretch of swampland dotted with tobacco fields and timber mills. You remember this place not for its cruelty, but because it was where Elijah once sent a man named Obadiah Turner, a blacksmith, rumoured to have a secret pit beneath his forge, where he once hid 6 souls for 3 weeks during a patrol sweep. You find Obadiah right where Elijah said he'd be hammering iron into something shaped like a horseshoe. He's bigger than you imagined. Thick arms, skin like carved mahogany, and a beard streaked with ash. When you approach, he doesn't look up at first. Just says, "I don't hire help, not unless they work better than me." You wait. He glances up, pauses, stares. "You from the north?" he asks, wiping his brow. You nod. "Ontario, before that, Virginia." He grunts, "Ontario, huh? Then you know snow, which means you know how to work through pain." Another pause. Then he jerks his head toward the forge. "Fire's low. Stoke it." You spend the day pretending to be a man, looking for honest labour. But by nightfall, when the shutters are latched and the door is bolted, Obadiah passes you a tin cup of water and asks the only question that really matters. "How many are you trying to get out?" You tell him, "As many as I can." And he smiles not with his mouth, but with his eyes. Then you're gonna need more than a list. Over the next month, you build it. A circuit, a rhythm, a strategy. By day, you move like a man with a job. You shape lumber, mend barns, deliver tools. But by night, you become something else entirely. A whisper, a shadow, a rumour that slithers through slave quarters, that flickers across lantern light during secret prayer gatherings, that hides itself in spirituals sung too loudly at dusk. The coded language comes back fast. Songs that mean danger is close. Psalms that map out roads and rivers. Prayers that double as instructions. Wade in the water, children. God's going to trouble the water. Meaning, go by river tonight. The dogs won't follow scent. And when the time is right, you meet them, one by one. A mother named Luella, with a baby wrapped in potato sack cloth. A boy named Benji, who hasn't spoken in weeks. 2 brothers, Thomas and Elijah, not your Elijah, but you feel the sting anyway, who refuse to be separated. You hide them in hay carts, in swamps, in dry wells. You feed them when you can. Patch wounds, patch hope. And always you walk them toward the border. To freedom. But the road is never clean. Not all make it. One night, deep in the Congaree swamp, you're moving with a group of 3 adults. 2 children when you hear the hounds. You freeze. Everyone does. The mother clamps her hand over her son's mouth. He doesn't cry thank God, but his tears stream like rain. You turn to the swamp. There's no path. No light. Just water and reeds and snakes. And you run. Branches claw your arms. Mud sucks your feet. But you keep going. You have to. Because if they catch you, it won't be just chains. It'll be death. You make it to a hollow tree. Shove the children inside. Cover them with moss. You and the others huddle beneath brush. And wait. The dogs pass by. So close you hear their breath. So close you see the moonlight on the barrel of the slave catcher's musket. But somehow, miraculously, they don't see you. You wait hours before moving again. And when you finally do, the baby is asleep and the others are shaking but alive. You get them to Obadiah 2 days later. He takes them north. You don't ask what route. The less you know, the safer they are. But you pray. Hard. And mark 5 more names in your journal. Then the news comes. Through whispers. Through cracks in church pews and corner store gossip. The Fugitive Slave Act. Passed. Enforced. Expanded. Now, not even the North is safe. Runaway slaves, even those who've lived free for years, can be captured and returned to bondage. Federal marshals are being dispatched. Bounty hunters paid more than ever before. And, worse, there are rewards. Money. For every person betrayed. Every family turned in. Even children. Even babies. And suddenly, the railroad doesn't feel underground anymore. It feels like it's on fire. Obadiah calls a meeting. You ride for a full day just to reach his forge. Inside, it's packed. At least 30 of you freedmen, conductors, sympathizers, even a white pastor from Pennsylvania who crossed state lines just to warn of patrols on the way. The conversation is fast, heated, scared. Some want to shut down all routes until things calm. Others want to push harder, fast to get as many out as possible before the net closes. You listen, and then speak. If we stop now, you say, they win. They want us scared, silent, frozen. Obadiah nods slowly. But we can't be careless, he replies. We won't. We'll be smarter. You pull out a new map, one you've been working on for weeks. A second route, longer, rougher, but safer. Through the mountains. Fewer roads, fewer eyes. Obadiah leans over it, grunts. Might work. It has to. You spend the next year carving paths into stone and snow. The mountain route becomes legend. People say it's cursed, say no one can survive it. But they do. You guide them. Not all. Never all. but enough. You lose some, yes, and each one is a scar. But you save more. And every life, carried past that last ridge into free land, feels like setting a lantern into the dark and watching it burn away shadow. Back in Canada, Ruth still writes to you. Sarai too. Isaac drew you a picture, one stick figures, and a big sun and a cross at the center. He titled it You. You keep it tucked inside your coat. Reminds you who you're doing this for. Not just the ones who are running, but the ones who never got to. One night, as you sit under a pine tree beside a frozen creek, you think of your mother again. Her voice, her songs, her strength, and you whisper into the cold, I made it, Ma, I made it. Then you rest, because tomorrow there's another journey to begin. Winter in the mountains doesn't care about freedom. It doesn't care about justice or redemption. It doesn't care that you're carrying a child on your back or that your boots are worn through. The cold bites through everything, your coat, your hope, your prayers, and still you press on. You're not alone this time. 6 others march beside you through a blizzard that's eaten the trail. A father named Horace, 2 young sisters whose names you still haven't gotten too scared to speak, and a pair of brothers who walked out of Alabama with nothing but the shirts on their backs and a verse from Exodus stitched into the hem. You hold the map in your mind now, the one that twists like a serpent through the Blue Ridge. Every stream, every hidden cave, every overhang where you can shield a fire from the wind. You've memorized it the way a man memorizes his wife's voice. That's the only reason you survive the 4th night. It starts when the wind begins to howl sharp and high-pitched, like a scream. Horace stumbles, his leg giving out. He hits the snow face first, wheezing. You crouch beside him, yank back his trousers. His calf is blue, not from frostbite worse. Infection, swollen, angry, and hot to the touch. We can't stop, someone whispers. But you know better. If he marches 1 more mile, he'll die. So you stop. You signal to the girls to crawl into the crevice of a rock overhang, insulated with branches. You build a fire with trembling fingers. Horace groans. He's delirious now, muttering about his wife. She's not here, of course. She died 3 years ago during childbirth. You know this because he told you back in Charleston, whispered it like a secret he wasn't allowed to keep. You pull out your knife. There's no doctor, no medicine, just fire and steel and prayer. The men hold him down. You bite your sleeve and press the blade into the swollen flesh. The scream rips through the trees like a banshee. The younger sister covers her ears, and you keep cutting, because that's what survival looks like now. Not clean, not righteous, just necessary. When it's over, you pour hot water over the wound, wrap it with spare cloth, and press your hand to his chest. He's alive, and he'll stay that way if the cold doesn't take him first. That night, you dream of chains. Not around your wrists, but your heart. It's Ruth again. She's standing at the edge of a cliff, holding Isaac. She's yelling something, but the wind's too loud. You try to run to her, but your legs are heavy. The snow turns to ash, the sky bleeds red, and then you wake up to silence. Too much silence. You sit up fast. The fire's out. The others are still there, breathing, curled up. But something's wrong. You feel it in your bones. You step out of the shelter, grip your knife. The trees are still. The stars blotted out. And then movement. A figure. Small. A child? You creep closer and stop cold. It's a girl. but not one of the sisters. She's barefoot, wearing a cotton dress too thin for this cold. Her eyes, they're empty. She stares at you for a long moment, then opens her mouth, but no sound comes out. You blink, and she's gone. Just gone. You don't know if it was a ghost, or a memory, or your mind cracking under the strain, but you don't sleep the rest of the night. Because deep down, you wonder, was she one you left behind? By morning, the storm is gone. The trail's clearer. Horace can walk with help. The sisters cling to each other like vines. You march another day, another night, until the ridge appears. Then, like salvation itself smoke, not thick, just wisps. A cabin. You signal caution. It could be a trap, or worse, a bounty hunter's den. You scout ahead, creep around the side. Inside, an old white man rocking slowly in a chair, a rifle by his side. You curse under your breath, but before you can slip away, his voice rasps out. You lost, boy? You freeze. His eyes are glassy, not cruel, just tired. You say nothing. He sighs, reaches into a crate, pulls out a biscuit, and tosses it toward the door. Leave your ghosts behind, he says, then turns back to the fire. You take the biscuit and leave him be. But later that night, when Horace eats it with shaking hands, you whisper a silent thanks to whatever divine mercy saw fit to cross your paths. 3 days later, you reach the border. No fences, no gates, just a line of trees that marks where slavery ends. It should feel triumphant. It doesn't, because you're thinking about the ones who didn't make it, and the ones still waiting, and most of all, because your work isn't done. Back in the South, things have turned. The railroad is now a hunted beast. Every white man with a hound and a gun thinks he's a hero. Rewards are posted in every town square, and the names? Your name. Obadiah's. Even Ruth's, somehow. They're on lists. With prices. One night, you sneak into a general store in Wilmington to steal a new pair of boots. And there, tacked on the wall beside tins of molasses and gunpowder, is a sketch that looks just enough like you to make your blood run cold. It's labelled, Wanted. Black male, tall, scar on left hand, answers to Moses or Peter. Suspected conductor of slave conspiracy, 500 for capture, dead or alive. You leave the store with your fists clenched and a weight in your chest. Because now, it's not just about escaping. It's about resisting, about standing, even if it means dying. That winter, Obadiah sends word, it's time to scatter. Too many eyes, he writes. We'll lay low for a while, keep the light burning but dim. You agree, but you don't stop. You just change. You become quieter, slipperier. You travel alone, speak less, trust fewer. You start hiding messages inside hymnals, patching maps into quilts. You bury supplies in hollowed tree stumps. Start using decoy routes. You become legend. The ghost conductor, they call you. The man who moves at night and leaves no tracks. Some say you don't exist. Others whisper you're bulletproof. You don't care. You just keep walking. And then one night you're caught. Not by a patrol. Not by a trap. By a boy, barely 12, holding a slingshot, trembling. He's guarding a tobacco barn. He sees you and doesn't run. Just asks, you the one who gets people out? You stare at him. Nod once. He lowers the slingshot. My sister's inside, he says. She's sick, needs help. You hesitate. It could be a trap. But your gut says no. So you follow. Inside, a girl, maybe 16, fevered, pale. You spend the night tending her with herbs, water, prayer. By morning, the fever breaks. And as the sun rises, her eyes flutter open. She smiles. It's the smallest thing, but it fills your chest with fire. You leave before the patrols start sniffing, but the boy runs after you. Wait. You turn. He thrusts something into your hand. A carved cross, rough, splintered. Ma made it, he says, before she passed. You don't speak, just nod, and slip it into your pocket. It stays there, forever. A reminder that you are not saving numbers. You are saving souls. The years pass. The war looms. You can feel it in the air, thick and electric. But you keep moving, keep saving, because you don't know when this nightmare will end. But you do know one thing. You will not stop until the very last chain is broken. You don't have a calendar, but your body keeps time. You know it's been 4 winters since you last saw Ruth's face in your dreams, without it twisting into sorrow. 3 summers since you carried a child across the Shenandoah under a false name and a full moon. 2 years since Obadiah vanished without a word, like smoke up a chimney. And 1 week since you last walked a group through the woods, clutching nothing but your wits and a single worn scrap of scripture sewn into your coat sleeve. Isaiah 61, 1. He has sent me to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and freedom to the prisoners. That verse lives inside you now, not just in memory, in action. But the truth is, you're tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. You've worn through 3 sets of boots, buried 2 friends, and watched enough cruelty to know that evil doesn't hide date, walks boldly in the light. Still, you keep going, because it's not about you anymore. It never was. In a small clearing outside Annapolis, Maryland, you meet a girl named Clara. She's barely 15, with skin like copper and hair tied back in rows, so tight it pulls at her brow. Her hands are rough. Too rough for someone her age. She was raised on a rice plantation in South Carolina. Worked the paddies before I could spell my name, she says, voice flat, like it doesn't matter anymore. Mama died from the fevers. Papa tried to run, didn't make it. She's quiet after that. You don't ask what happened to him. You don't need to. Instead, you hand her a strip of dried meat and point to the stars. Follow that one, you say. The North Star. If you lose your way, just find it again. She doesn't cry, doesn't thank you. Just nods once, fierce and silent. You'll learn later that Clara walked alone through Delaware, hid in an abandoned barn for 2 days, and crossed into Pennsylvania by swimming the Brandywine Creek, while a search party camped just 2 miles away. They say she didn't blink once. She'll live. More than that, she'll fight. But that's later. Tonight, she sleeps curled under a blanket you traded for a gold ring, your last piece of jewelry from before everything. You don't regret it. You'd trade your whole past for her future. The next week brings a letter, slipped into your satchel under a rock near the sycamore tree at Lick Creek. Only 2 people know that drop point. Obadiah is one of them. The parchment is stiff, like it was written in haste and dried in the sun. It says, "Need you in Petersburg, south route blown." She nods. Where? West. There are whispers of a settlement in the Rockies. Far, hidden. They need people who know how to move quiet. She reaches for your hand. You're always chasing ghosts. You squeeze hers back. No, I'm just trying to leave a trail. She presses a small object into your palm. A tiny carved dove. You smile. She always was better with words you could hold. Come back, she says. You don't promise, but you nod. And you mean it. When you leave New Wren, it's not as a fugitive. It's as a messenger, a carrier of fire. You move through forests, mountains, across frozen rivers and crumbling paths, retracing and redrawing the veins of a freedom not yet won. And everywhere you go, you leave something behind. A name, a word, a whisper. Because someday, someone else will walk this way. And when they do, you want them to know they weren't the first to dream of more, and they won't be the last.